Everyone. Welcome back to another episode of Unveiled Voices.
Episode 3, right?
Yeah, this is the third episode. So it's going back by really quickly, right, Mariam?
Yeah.
How are you this week, Mariam?
Oh, good. Um, Nothing much has happened. So still business as usual. Nine to
Business as
five.
usual. That sounded very formal.
Yeah, BAU. Nothing much has been happening. So basically just work,
Yeah.
life, family, things, doings.
Right. So before we get started today, I'm just curious about again getting feedback from people. How did you find the last episode? Did you enjoy us talking about goals, goal setting, how to kind of ensure that you actually achieve your goals? If you did, please remember to like, share, and subscribe to our podcast. We're available everywhere, and as always, the links will be in the show notes. Again, we're super keen to hear from you all the time. So please feel free to send us emails and we'll be sure to respond.
Definitely, we will
Okay.
follow and also share with your friends, sisters, everybody basically.
Even your enemies, please. We should want good for everyone.
Yeah.
Yeah. So before maybe as a way to kind of like dive or delve. Oh my
Um,
god, if you're someone who is on
yeah,
Judy,
exactly. I got the joke.
you're going to understand the backstory to that delve. Maybe it's something to talk about. Anyway, before we delve into this episode, I'm just curious. Like, Mariam, you have worked in at least two different places that it's not Nigeria. One of them in the Middle East, and one
Mhm.
of them here in Europe. How have you found like observing your hijab and like being a part of the corporate world or capitalist world? How do you show up?
So I think one thing that I've just basically come to terms with now, it might change in the future, Allah wa alam, is I am a minority, right? So
But what does that mean? Complete.
Black minority group, Muslim minority group, Black Muslim woman minority minority group. So yeah, I think I've just
Black.
yeah. So
We can go on and on.
yeah, exactly. So
But being a minority is not bad, right? It's just as a result of the part of the world where
yeah. That's why I said that Allah alam it might possibly change in the future. But I mean, this is our current reality.
hmm
So knowing that, also like you've mentioned, in places where I've worked, is always kind of like standing out to say, okay, yes, you are Black female Muslim, so like you don't have people that maybe look like you. I think one thing that would be interesting, again, from my experience, many other people might have different experience. As much as Dubai is in the Middle East, you probably would not see that much people wearing the hijab. Again, Dubai is more of an expat
I
environment.
see.
So you
So they
have
have
people,
more foreigners in.
yeah, like before you would literally see an Emirati, like it's not
Mhm.
something you most likely have seen 10 Indians, 10 Pakistanis, 10
Mhm.
Africans before you.
It's just that is that because they just don't live in Dubai? They live in other parts.
Yeah, because yeah, UAE is the country, Dubai is like a city in UAE, so you have other
Mm,
parts, you have Sharjah, you have Ras Al Khaimah, Abu Dhabi, so yeah. So I think
interesting.
because Dubai is already that is that expat up, so you most likely not see many actual Emiratis around. So in Dubai, I did feel like a minority because again, black female Muslim. That's minority. Then in London, funny enough, in London, I would say I do not exactly feel like a minority on the street, but in the workplace, definitely, I do feel like a minority because I'm or I'm most likely the only hijabi on the team most times. So
Mhm.
yeah, there's also that. So looking at those two environments, how do I feel?
Mhm.
Yeah, I definitely feel I don't have people that look like me. I definitely feel I probably need to prove myself more because yeah, I kind of like stand out as an individual that is different from every other person. So I really need to constantly prove that I am capable, I can do this, I can do that. So but I think I'm happy with the direction the world is going into.
Or
Everybody.
what direction do you
So
think the
I
world
think
is going?
there's that recognition of identity because everybody is now trying to identify as something these days.
Hmm.
So if I choose to identify as a female Muslim woman, yeah, then that's my identity. So you should actually respect that. So I think
Mm-hmm.
more people are coming to terms with we need to respect people for their identities. So
Yeah.
and I think that's basically working for Muslim women in the workplace as well.
So far, yeah. I mean, like, honestly, I would say for me, I always like to acknowledge my privilege in all of this, to be honest. I feel like I've gotten probably the good side of just someone who decided to observe the hijab. So, for context, I started to wear the hijab when I got into university. So
Same after
exactly
secondary school.
my first year of uni, and it was as a kind of as a result of me just learning more about the religion and
Mhm,
kind of on my own deciding, okay, this is who I want to be, this is how I want to show up, fully acknowledging that not everybody has that sort of story of where, oh, even though I was born a Muslim, like
yeah.
I kind of still went through that journey myself. And I feel like in uni I had like a, okay, this is my baseline. This is how I'm always going to show up. It
Yeah.
wasn't always reflective of internally, like what I was going through with regards to my faith. But I
Mhm,
feel like, alhamdulillah, it's one of the things I've just been like on. And, I've never had any reason to kind of, want to change or feel like, oh, this is not what I want anymore. Again, acknowledging the privileges that the first place I worked, where I did like my national service in
mhm,
Nigeria, there was a place we could pray downstairs, a mosque. So, full transparency for those people who are not Muslims that may be listening to this, we Muslims actually are obligated to observe prayers 5 times daily.
mhm.
And at least for most people, two out of those prayers will fall into like your
During
work time.
nine to
So,
five.
yeah, it's been a long thing of debate where people feel like, okay, how much of your identity should you be able to bring into like the workplace as a Muslim? But again, for someone like me, fully acknowledging my privilege in that when I was in Nigeria, I wasn't the only Muslim, which
Mhm.
yeah was a good thing. I wasn't even the only hijabi, and so we had this like small group where we'd go pray downstairs together, come back upstairs.
Yeah.
Even in moving to the UK, like there's always a prayer room, like where I worked previously. Everywhere I've worked, actually, to be honest, and even the place that didn't have a prayer room, I work from home for the most part.
Mhm.
Then, so again, what you touched on about, I think the world is in a completely different place than it was. I don't know, some years ago. Fully again acknowledging that some people probably in the last few years have actually gone through the more challenging times, and as a result
Yeah.
of their good work, people are now more exposed. They actually understand, and these things are kind of the norm. Like people are not surprised to see people wearing the hijab or
Mhm.
disappearing for 5 minutes during lunch break to just go observe prayers. So yeah, it's been a positive one for me as well. May Allah make it easy for us.
I mean,
Um
well,
yeah, no, go ahead,
yeah.
please.
So, and I just wanted to speak to that. That as much as there is the bit of where the world is aware of that Muslim woman identity, I think as Muslims as well, for most of us, because of we have the need to always show and be present, we kind of struggle internally to, oh, if I take this 5 minutes to go pray Salah, if my
Mhm.
manager pings me at this point, like if I tell my manager, oh, I went to pray, what will my manager feel? Like basically battling all of those internally because we don't want to come across as probably lazy
Mhm.
or caffeine or
Or
wasting away
needing
time. Yeah,
spell.
exactly. So I think I just want to reiterate the fact that to sort of overcome all of those conflicting thoughts, sort of you need to look inwards and acknowledge the fact that you're a Muslim first
Mhm.
before being a finance analyst. You're a Muslim first
And
before
who are you even accountable to?
exactly before
Who
being a
even got
software.
you that job in the first place?
Exactly,
So I
exactly.
think when people think like that, again, it's normal because you are like, oh, not super comfortable trying to get special concessions.
Mm-hmm.
But the way I have rationalized it, and again, this is not me judging anyone, but nobody should come for me. Literally, people go on smoke breaks at
Thank
work,
you, thank
and
you.
this
Coffee breaks as well.
coffee breaks, none of this will last less than 5 minutes.
Yeah,
if that is okay, if that isn't frowned upon, then I think it's okay to be, again, depending on the workplace you're at. Like if there is indeed like the prayer room, chances are they already know about this anyway. Just maybe be upfront to the manager that,
Yeah.
oh, for 5 minutes at the time of 1 p.m. or ish, I'll be away from my desk or something. Like just be upfront about it. I remember when I started this my job, or even before, I think we were still, me and the HR were still maybe in the phase where I was still deciding on the job and all. Was I kind of asked, is there a prayer room? And again, fully acknowledging my privilege in that,
They wanted you. You're like,
I could
okay.
even ask that, because
Yeah.
there's some places you be in, you cannot even ask that.
Yeah.
Fully
Yeah.
acknowledging that for all the faults of the United Kingdom, like relatively, there are places that these things are normalized,
Hmm.
multi-faith room,
Yeah.
prayer rooms, and you can
Yeah.
sort of ask for these things. So yeah, very important. Remember who you are accountable to first. I think that's a very important point you brought up, Mara.
Yeah. So speaking of the privilege parts, I think the last two places I've worked with, so like you've mentioned, they had the provision for prayer room and
Mm-hmm.
the multi faith room thing. But for some of our listeners that do not have that privilege, I probably would want to share an example of when I interned at a particular place and that provision wasn't available. So
Wow.
I think my first internship
Mm-hmm.
and also my first NYSC internship, because I interned at two places during my NYSC year. So my very first internship, I can't remember what year now, but back in the days,
Oh yes.
the
Mm-hmm.
old days, right? So there was not that provision for prayer. I was living in the mainland and working on the island. So imagine Lagos commute. So if you say you're not praying during working hours, before you get home, you're literally praying Zuru, Ashri,
Everything
Bisha,
together.
everything all together. So I had somebody a school colleague that we also intern together with, and he was also a Muslim. So what we did at the time was we literally checked the streets where the office was and we scouted for. You would always see Hausa Malams sort of on the streets. So and they definitely pray. So we kind of like scouted for that and we saw those Hausa guys on the streets and they had like prayer spaces where they prayed.
Mm-hmm.
The one of the issues was because they were men, they didn't have spaces for women. So I'm like, I would create my space
Mm-hmm.
for myself.
I just need to pray.
I
Yeah.
just need to pray, yeah. And what we usually do was during our lunch break. So
Mm-hmm.
we'll time our lunch break was when it was time for prayer. So we'll go for lunch and then we'll go to pray. So
Mm.
it's literally us taking lunch break and we didn't have to explain to anybody.
Yeah.
Then I think after work hours, they would observe Ashri.
Mm-hmm.
Then the other example was when I interned my first internship during NYC. That didn't also have a prayer room, but
Mm.
in the basement where the car park was, so we had like multiple offices in that
I
building.
see.
In
Mhm.
the basement where the car park was, so the Muslims in that
They
building,
all will just, yeah,
yeah, they all would just come and in the basement in the car
use
park, everybody
it.
would take prayer mat and we would observe our prayers and everybody will go. And again, we would time it during our lunch break and we will go. So just because you don't have a multi faith room
A
in,
designated,
yeah, like
yeah,
you just need to figure it out for yourself and make it work for you.
yeah.
Like Anifah had mentioned, people go for smoke breaks, people go for coffee breaks,
Hmm.
people go for toilet breaks. Some people go to
I
the
mean,
restroom.
literally, you cannot control going to, you
Yeah,
have to go
exactly.
to
They
the
will go to rest
loo.
for 30 minutes. So yeah, so you just and again, it's not how much of your time to solar like that
Mm,
you doing max
yeah.
to take 15-20 minutes. So
Hmm.
that's definitely
Even
not
if you take off to that for the
an
ones during the day,
yeah.
yeah, that make it easy.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, fully acknowledge that. Yeah, I think a lot of it is just being uncertain about it, how it will be received. I
Hmm.
do know some people that they've actually taken jobs where it's very hard to even pray. What
Mm-hmm.
I always say is that how much do you want the ideal situation you're in? Like, if you want, are you talking to God about it? Like, I promise you, if you're literally telling Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala that this job I am in, this is it, oh, maybe it's even frowned upon to
Mm.
pray at work. Like cry to God and be like, you actually want to be able to observe your salah at the right times. For whose sake? For his sake and his sake alone. And honestly, Allah has his ways. I don't know how to explain it. I won't even doubt at all.
Yeah.
So it's also acknowledging that not everybody has the privilege of, getting a place where there's already a prayer room, or all these people already have maybe Muslim friends. They understand, people even know what halal is all the way here. Like these are things that we take for granted. Maybe some workplaces are not like that. So it's how much do you want it as a Muslim? How much are you talking to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala about this as well? If you are not in the ideal situation, take it to God, and inshallah something will work out that would make it easy.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, you pretty much summed it up. So
Mm-hmm.
you basically need to understand that your identity as a Muslim comes first. Pray to God to make your affairs easy.
Mm-hmm.
I remember when I moved from Dubai to UK, my first Ramadan year. So my
Yeah.
Ramadan in Dubai, because Dubai is Dubai, like it's literally, if our HR would send emails before Ramadan starts to say Muslim colleagues would be ending work by 4 p.m. because they have to go break their
So they
fast.
were already baked in
So like
consensus.
it's already like it's normal. Like no, you will not see anybody booking meeting after 4 for you. Like everybody understands that you are going through Ramadan and they understand like it's well pronounced them. Then when I moved to the UK and my first Ramadan year, so I was like, what do I do? And there's also the bit of is longer hours here, so you're literally
Mm.
already before you're actually already fatigued before, so I can't keep doing this. So before Ramadan started, I spoke to my manager. So I didn't even bring up the conversation as is can I or may I will was how I actually had that conversation. Okay, I will be going off work from these hours because I'm fasting.
Mhm,
But I also brought so it doesn't look like I was just using that as an excuse. I
mhm.
also mentioned that okay, I would start working earlier.
So it's not like you're taking
So it's
time.
not like
You're
I'm
basically
yeah,
doing front loading your work for the time
exactly.
where
So
you're
I'm going to start working, and I actually work with people in all
other
parts of
zones.
Europe.
Yeah.
So I've actually been working earlier before. So it's just to say, okay,
Just you
normally,
formalizing it.
yeah,
Yeah.
exactly. So I had that conversation. I didn't bring it. I didn't have that conversation as a can I, may I
Mhm.
brought it as I will, and I also brought solutions or kind of like what I would use to augment it. So it didn't look like I was using that as an excuse to say because I'm a Muslim, that's why I need lesser hours. No, I am going to be off these hours, but I would start working earlier. So if you look at it in
Make
the
up for it.
yeah,
Yeah.
exactly.
Mhm.
So I think having that conversation a more diplomatic way would
Yeah.
also help. So I basically told my manager to say, hey, I would not be available after these hours because I would be fasting. I explained what fasting is. This is why I would be tired by this time. Like you can actually go through the process if you want to understand what I'm talking about.
What?
No, I didn't say that. I obviously didn't say
Mhm.
that. So then what I did was I blocked my calendar from 5 p.m. So
Yeah.
you put any from 4:30 actually. So you put anything, you would see out of what
Auto decline.
I'm all there. Then in my status, my chat status, I put it there at stop by 4:30. So if
Mm-hmm.
as you are messaging me, you are seeing it there that this person is not available. Then I also ensured that I was doing everything as at when due. So I didn't want it to be a situation of, oh, what is supposed to be, so what is due for today? I didn't do it. Oh, why did you not do it? I was
Mm.
tired. I logged off
Because I'm
early
fasting.
because
Mhm.
I'm fasting. So I didn't give all those opportunities for
Excuses.
that
Yeah.
for the excuses. So yeah. So again, I understood that I needed to do this because this is my faith, this is my religion. And I
Yeah.
also understand that okay, I need to come through on the work front because obviously this is
Absolutely.
where I'm getting my money from.
It's
So
always easier to get concessions when you are not flopping. Let's put it that way. Like
exactly.
you are on point with all. So people will be like, ah, she's
Yeah,
doing her
yeah.
job really
Doing
well
our job.
anyway. So
Yeah,
they'll be
exactly.
more open. But if you're already kind of today, they will ask you, okay, where are you on this project? Yeah, doing you already know the deal, right?
Yeah.
It's harder to get concessions. So again, always kind of put your best foot forward, because acknowledging fully that as a Muslim, you're going to need some of this quote unquote extra special allowances, right, to be able to perform your duties to your Lord.
Yeah. Apart from
Um,
apart from Salah, what other parts of being a Muslim? So like hijab, like socializing, like
oh my God, this is a big one. I think so. I've been in places where people swear like a lot, like
yeah.
words, the Kinikon words, some words that I don't even know. And for me, obviously, like I just generally find swearing a bit jarring. And the first few times I've been around it, you just literally see my head swivel like,
What?
yes, I think it's easier in bigger companies where like it's very formal and all not to do those things.
Mm,
And there are like guidelines for like acceptable behavior. You hardly, when I was working in a big company, you hardly find that. But when you're in a more informal startup, right, those things tend to happen. People tend to say those things. Again, like I'm not the one swearing, but it just took me a while to see that, oh, this is actually how some people express their frustration and all.
mm.
Apart from that, when it comes to like actual socializing, one of the, I guess this one is constant, whether you work in a big company or a small company or a two-person company. There is a huge drinking culture here in the UK.
Oh.
There's a huge drinking culture, which I don't know
Mm,
how to explain it, but first of all, people drink in Nigeria, but it's not an activity, I guess, where it's done with like colleagues from work. Do you get what
or even the frequency. Like most Nigerians would probably do it on a
Yeah,
weekend.
like I know people who drink, but literally when I was working in Nigeria, there was never a case where like it's like a norm to go and drink together.
Mm,
It's
mm.
more probably a norm to like eat together,
Or
right?
do escape room together.
Escape room together. So I feel like that was such a huge culture shock for me. And I'm not ashamed to say, or I'm ashamed to say that when I first came for the internship, I think then was probably one of the World Cups or something, as a part of peer pressure and trying to network and all. I don't know if this was even like a classic pub. It was just a place where you could watch the match and drinks were flowing
Yeah.
like that. And I remember I was so uncomfortable. And that was when I knew that it's not even the actual drinking that bothers me, because I'm not the one drinking. It's the
The environment.
behavioral changes that
Yeah.
come. Like, I'm not comfortable seeing people I work with drunk. It was just super odd to me. And I think that was the day I was like, nah, I'm not doing this again. Right? Like, no, this is not right. So I feel like for me, subsequently, every place I've worked, it's been a bit of like a pick and choose. So the good thing about these things is that companies try to be flexible and diverse in that, or if they're having like a social, it would be something that most people can participate in. There might still be people drinking some things that you would not
Mhm.
drink, but by and large, it's very civil. It's not like a drinking place. It's either, oh, maybe you're doing escape room together as you
Yeah.
said, or you're doing some very nice go karting, or you go to a restaurant and have a nice dinner. So those ones, I'm there. Like I'm happy to show up, because again, I think by default it's easy for us to kind of like pull back away from generally socializing. And maybe this is another conversation to have another day,
Mhm.
but that will not serve you well. Like
Yeah.
people, especially when it comes to talks of like promotion.
That's
Look,
where they have
I'm all
those.
I'm all about like, focus on your work, your hard skills. But if I don't know you, like if I cannot get a sense of who you are,
Mm,
right? Which would most likely not just happen when you're at work, especially with the advent of like remote working and all. It's harder for you to move up the ranks or move through. And if that's your goal, you have to socialize with people. And so that's why I would never say to people like, no, you don't need to socialize at all. You don't need to. But what you can do is like the spaces you don't want to be in, or the things that are not encouraged by your religion, you don't feel a pressure to
mhm.
do it just because of
Exactly.
the job. But you have to socialize with people. People have to know you. Like, for example, it's kind of plastered on my head. I don't drink, right? Everyone knows it. Like, so it benefits you that people know your
What
kind
you
of do's and don'ts. Otherwise, you're going to get into a position where, oh, you don't people are you'll be surprised at these things. Like not everyone knows. Oh, because you're a Muslim, you can't do that. There are Muslims that do these things. By the way, you're
Mm,
gonna come up against them, or not against them. You're gonna see people that are Muslims that do these things at work. So, how do you stand on your convictions of okay, I don't want to be in a space where I can see my friends getting drunk or
yeah,
my people at work getting drunk? Then you are not going to go. If there's something else, if there's an escape, if there's a nice dinner, by all means, please go have dinner with your workmates and bond with them as much as you can. Don't do what you don't feel comfortable doing. Don't do what is displeasing to your Lord just because what like you want to keep a job. Not
yeah.
ideal.
So to that point on standing on your convictions, and also interesting on how the world is moving, and like part of how we can take advantage of the narrative, and also
Hmm.
the how people see us as Muslim women. So there's this thing at work where if we want to go for something, like the organizer of the event is just basic, because there are some people that have allergies to like peanuts and whatnot.
Oh
So
yeah, 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 yeah.
they need to make provision for those people. But now it is now very inclusive to the point of there is a provision for if you don't drink, do you drink? No.
Already say it
Do you
up
eat meat?
front. Yeah.
Like, do you eat pork? No. Are you a vegetarian? No. So
Halal. Yeah.
yeah, halal, exactly. So I think again, as Muslim women, those are kind of like things
Take full
you can
advantage of
exactly you
those
can lean
like,
into to say yes. I don't
literally.
need to explain to anybody why I don't drink. Yes, I don't just drink.
No,
I
no,
don't
you
drink.
don't have
I
to
don't need to explain to
justify.
anybody
You
why I don't
don't
eat
drink.
pork.
You don't. Funny enough, there are a lot of people that don't drink now.
Yeah,
More than
yeah,
increasingly, that's what I'm starting to see. Very different from 5 years ago. So when I
yeah,
started working, and you could see people all over.
yeah.
I remember there was someone back then that couldn't drink, maybe because they had like something wrong with, I can't remember if it was their liver or kidneys, but if they drank alcohol, it would be problematic for them. They would land in
Hmm.
the hospital. So again, there are always concessions, or quote unquote, wherever you find yourself in the world, there are always ways to stick to what you know, stick to what you don't want to do, while taking full advantage of all these opportunities to network
Yeah.
with others and do things like that. So I guess to kind of like reel it back a bit, right? One thing I'm curious about is, I don't know about you, but when I was growing up, I didn't really think much about, oh, someone that looks like me works here or something. I don't know. I feel like when you're younger, you're less aware of like
Mhm,
identity,
mhm.
politics, like, oh, this is my people, those are your
Yeah,
people. Like it's something that even say for example being black, it's not a thing back home where
yeah, that you have, yeah,
we are all
use
who
as your
is
identity.
black, right?
Mhm.
So identity is something that you become more aware of when you're in a place that you are not the like majority, or you're not the usual. Like if I take one out of 10 people, what are the odds that it will be a black person? What are the odds that it will be someone who is Muslim? What are the odds that it will be someone wearing the hijab?
Yeah.
So it's something you become aware of more when you're not in a familiar environment. So I was just kind of curious, like for you, when you were about to come up in the workplace or things like, or maybe even in uni, were
Mhm.
you conscious of the fact that, oh, this career that I want to go down this line, how many people can I pick out is a visible Muslim woman, even
Mm,
even in Nigeria?
yeah, no, no. I mean, that was definitely something that was always at the back of my mind, and yeah.
When did you become aware of it? Did you have like a certain age where you were just like activated, like, oh wow, what's going on here?
So I think I started. Okay, so I started wearing the hijab proper,
Mm-hmm.
proper. Like in when I started uni, so pretty great uni,
Okay.
and it was interesting to see the narrative of Muslim women that were out there. So that was when we had the likes of Big Fours, no hiring Muslim women, like literally telling people with hijab that no,
Was
we
that
don't.
worldwide or just in Nigeria?
I think it was in Nigeria.
Hmm.
I actually think it was in Nigeria. It was in Nigeria, I think. I think as at that was like 6 years ago. I think this was just in Nigeria, I think, but I
Hmm.
might be wrong. But Yeah, so we had, and so that was kind of like one of the places that for what I studied in school, you would probably see people
Want
applying
to
to
go
for
work, yeah.
telling me, telling me I can't apply. Okay, I was like, okay, fine. Then I won't even put myself through this. What if? So I'm more pointing.
Hmm.
I'm not going to apply to you. But it also didn't help that we didn't see much Muslim women in that space, in like in being top of the ranks. So I was really excited
Uh-huh.
the very
But,
first time
but
I
there
saw.
were Muslim women
They
around.
were actually,
Just
but
nothing.
you can point
Pick
them.
out.
Yeah, you can pick them
Why
out.
do you think that was?
I think most Muslim women growing up didn't know what opportunities were applicable.
Hmm.
Also, similarly, like non like so all of these companies saying we don't allow Muslim women, so people were just laid back to say, okay,
Like,
you
oh,
don't allow
instead
me.
of you to not
Yeah,
allow me,
yeah. So I'll then
I'd
not have.
rather not be a
Mhm.
part of that.
Yeah. Look at the case of this I can't remember her name, this lady that refused to not wear
The
the hijab
lawyer.
or to bar ceremony. Like imagine thousands of Muslims that have got done
Decided against being
yeah,
lawyers because
yeah, that
uh,
they've done the court, but somebody just stood and said, no, I won't allow
I'm
this.
not gonna, yeah.
What is being obtainable during those call to bar ceremonies. So for me, I just had it at the back of my mind that obviously I was okay, my dear. I was like I had my results. I'm like, it cannot be worse. And
I
my
will
dad kind
find
of
something
yeah,
for
my
me.
dad kind of
Yeah.
ingrained in us the philosophy of education is like the it's very important and it can literally open whatever doors
Doors
you
for
want.
you.
So I just had it in the back of my mind that so far as I'm doing well, like academically, my grades are fine. I wasn't even a triangular student. I was involved in extracurricular.
Curriculars
I was
as well.
representing my school in competition. So I was like, nah, I don't think it to be bad at all bad
You find something.
to find something. I think the very first time I saw a Muslim woman in hijab in the corporate world, like in the spaces I wanted to be. So back then, that was the investment banking and investment world, and that was when I saw Abimbola Sulaiman. Like,
Okay.
and she was the I think at the time she was the of ARM investment. I
Okay.
can't remember, but she was our
The
position
top,
was
yeah.
yeah, and I'm like, okay, this is somebody, yeah, go get it. Like this
Mm-hmm.
should not be bad. So we to just be a conversation of do you want me because of the way I look, or do you want me because of
What I
what
can
I
do.
can do? So let's have that conversation. Talk to me, look at me in the face and tell me after everything I've done or after whatever you've seen you are still going to make that decision to hire or not to hire me just because I have my hijab on. So
Yeah.
I think that was just the back motivation that kept me going to say I think I will find. And alhamdulillah now I think it's better now. Look at me. We have people that are visibly Muslims and
Mm-hmm.
are doing well, very
Navigating things,
yeah,
yeah.
yeah. Like most days when you see all these school graduations, you most likely see BGS.
Someone, yeah. Someone, yeah.
Muslim.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, alhamdulillah. I think yeah, people are
Mm-hmm.
starting to recognize that.
No, you touched on a really good point, and I think also that it's important to acknowledge that while we always talk about 9 to 5 hours corporate, that's because that's what we know. A
Yeah,
lot of people also have businesses. A lot of people,
and
in
are
fact,
successful at
that's
it.
what I'd love to see more because I think that when you get into a real position of power, when you have a company, you are then like the employer of labor.
Mm-hmm.
So, for example, I think there's this investment app, Wahid.
Mm,
I think Wahid Invest. And I don't know, there was someone on Twitter was talking about how maybe they paid for all of them to go for Umrah. And
wow.
Umrah is like the lesser privilege. Sorry, pilgrimage.
Yeah.
Lesser pilgrimage is to Mecca, right? To the holy city of Mecca. And I was like, wow, why is that's because they're a Muslim company. Like they get it. And even in Ramadan, I heard they also have like certain special concessions or
Mm,
maybe they work lesser or something like that, right? So it's a thing of you only will get into the key making decisions, first of all, either by working your way up the rank in an already existing company, right? Which means you have to navigate like we are kind of navigating, or you have a business, you become an employer of labor. And then
Mm-hmm.
you yourself are now setting these policies and these allowances for potentially people that are like you as well. So for me, I always think about it in two ways, in like, okay, as an employee in a space where I'm not the only type of employee, right? Am I being fair to my employer? Am I fulfilling my rights? Because again, you asking for 5, 10, 15 minutes, you cannot be asking for that and you're not doing your job well, right? Like it's you have to be just, right? You have to be like fulfilling your rights to your
Mm-hmm.
employer. So if I am an employer of labor in the future as well, I would come at it with a very open mind of these were the things I enjoyed in my 9 to 5 days, in my corporate world days, and also set that sort of like inclusive environment for potentially different people. And that's how we should all be thinking about it, regardless of the path that we choose to go. But again, like you said, Mariam, like always key is that as a Muslim woman or as a Muslim period, point blank, there's no way you want to slice or dice it. The person you're accountable to, first of all, is your Lord,
Mm-hmm.
right? Are you fulfilling all your rights to your Lord? Because you're going to account for all these things, right? If you're drinking, you're going to pubs because, oh,
You
want
want?
to blend in with everyone else, then I don't know what to say to you because we're very privileged right now. The world we are in is probably the most inclusive it's ever been, right?
Yeah.
I was thinking about it somewhere. Like, what if we had been born 100 years ago? It's a completely different story. So we're at a time in the world, regardless of how people want to show the ugly sides. Like
Mm-hmm.
I see a lot of things on Twitter, but I work and live with real world people that are like super nice, super warm, very curious. Oh, you don't know this. Even
Yeah.
when I came back from Hajj, like people were asking me, "Oh, what is that? Like, how does? Oh, it sounds very fulfilling." You know, this is the world we live in, right? And fine, they're like a number of bad eggs, quote unquote. You know, but hopefully we'll be in that state where or privileged to always meet the good ones. And again, when you work with different people from different parts of the world or different races or whatever from you, it's an opportunity to show up as your best self, right? So
Yeah.
what are you known for? Excellence or not? What are you known for? Sticking to your convictions or not? Or being like a pushover or a wishy-washy person? So all of these things just goes back to saying that God first, everything else after, right?
Secondary.
So
Yeah.
arrange everything else against these structures and these things that you have to do already. Mariam, I don't know if you have something else to add.
Yeah, I think I'll just round it up to also add that as much as probably in your immediate team you're the only hijabi, you can also form.
Chances are you'll be the only one. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. And in the events you're not the only one, I think you should have that community and solidarity with each
Sisterhood,
other.
brotherhood,
Yeah.
sisterhood,
So
friendhood,
yeah,
whatever.
yeah.
And
So
look, it doesn't even need to be. Sorry, I wanted to touch
yeah,
on
yeah.
this earlier.
Hmm.
It doesn't need to be. So there are people that might not be black, but they are Muslims.
Definitely. I
They
was
have
going to
something in
point out
common,
that.
right?
Yeah.
There are people that might not be Muslims, but they are black or
Yeah.
African or whatever. That's a
Yeah.
community right there. So don't remove yourself the world because oh they have to be exactly like you. No, because guess what? You too, you're not exactly like everyone else. Even if it's one thing, even if it's a love of books that links you with someone else. Like some of the best people I've worked with have been what? White, hardcore Caucasian men. Like the people that have promoted me, that have pushed me to next levels of my career, right? They're nothing like me. But what? We found something, some common ground, and we stuck to it. So very important that any hint of likeness or of similarities, which as humans we all have, it
Hmm.
could be a show. Leverage it into showing up as your best self and being
Yeah.
open to people to know you. Sorry, Mariam, for cutting you
No, no,
short.
no. That was what I was going to say. So, like, find that community, find that ally, basically, and yeah. So you don't have to like figure it out for yourself. So if your
No,
workspace doesn't have a prayer room, find out other Muslims like you. Okay, should we go to the
how we go run now? How we go
yeah?
do am?
Like, should we
Yeah.
use the car park?
Honestly, I found that asking questions and just being an open book, like
Mm-hmm.
you're going to go very far. You're going
Yeah.
to learn a lot of things. So please, yeah, when it comes to your faith as well, don't
Yeah,
hide it. Be
yeah.
very open about who you are. The world will come to meet you where you are.
Everybody's identifying as something these days. I saw one. I don't know if you saw it. I saw
The
one.
way you keep saying this thing, I think there's a story behind it.
No,
You
no,
have
no.
to
I
come.
saw one tweet where it was a video where, so you know all these London buses that they have like the destination that they are going to, that would be sort of like neon signs in front. So
Neon sign.
in front of the bus, what they wrote was, I am not a bus, I identify as a train.
Well, like the boss is saying it's a trend.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. So everybody's identifying as something. So
Yeah, still,
yeah,
yeah.
suits your
Don't
identity.
feel you have to morph yourself into something that you're
Mm-hmm,
not, right?
mm-hmm,
Show up as you are. Again, this is probably the best time in the world to be very open about your identity.
exactly.
So please, may Allah make it easy for us as Muslim women. Let's make sure we're observing our salah. Let's make sure we're remembering to do our adhkar. It could be on your commute. It could be
Mhm.
while you're doing your house just quickly, quickly.
Yeah.
These are things we should be doing. If you can pay your zakat, please pay your zakat to help the needy Muslims as well. Everything that makes you a better Muslim, right? Don't sacrifice it for what? This world. And what
Mm-hmm.
is this world? 9 to 5, your business, whatever it is, remember God first.
Yeah.
All right. I feel this episode was quite preachy.
No, no, yeah, yeah. As much as we are discussing contemporary issues, we would also have to admonish ourselves and remind ourselves.
Absolutely. I feel like there's a tendency to, and this is not like talking at people, this is me as well. Like, especially, so for me, when I'm trying to figure something out in code and all, that's
Mm.
my weakness. Like, I'm so engrossed that sometimes I don't really know that time is going and all. So thankfully, we have all these apps now that we just say, Allah,
Yeah,
and they're like,
back to reality.
or your watch will vibrate and you're
I
like,
think
if you
I need
don't
to
go, you're making a call not to go at
yeah.
that time, and what? That's not good. So, Alhamdulillah, we're in a time where
Hmm.
technology is also, if you set it
Enabling.
up right, it should enable the right
Yeah.
behavior, right? Like, listen to lectures, watch lectures, make sure you are infusing this part of yourself, which is supposed to be a very big part in every part of your day, even at work.
Mm-hmm.
People see you and they know, oh, Anifah is a Muslim. Oh, she's trustworthy. She
Yeah.
doesn't lie. She's dependable. She delivers. Oh, where is Anifah? She has gone to observe, Muslims. They even learn more about Islam. They know when you fast. That's what it should be like. Please don't hide your identity as a Muslim. Be very proud, because what does it do? The next generation
It will be
is
better for them.
easier for them. Yeah.
Yeah.
Just like we are benefiting from
Yeah.
some people, who've been brave to talk about their faith at work.
Yeah.
Yeah. All right. So to wrap up this episode, thank you so much again for listening. Please like, share, and subscribe.
Please.
Send us your dilemmas, or if you have any particular
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
experience related to any of the topics we've talked about, or you have topics you want us to talk about, please email us. Our email is always in the show notes. And yeah, till next time again.
Hey.